Good morning, friends. I would invite you to enjoy the sound of my neighbor mowing their lawn. Because if I wait for the right conditions to be able to make this video, there's a good possibility it's not going to happen. I have been showing up here, I have been working on making videos, and I have had every interruption under the sun, including phone calls in the middle of them, and that is fine and perfect, and it just is. And so today I wanted to talk about how people who know me in real life tend to make a lot of comments about how I am living my best life and how I exude joy and how that joy is just contagious. And these people are all coming from a loving place, and their feedback is beautiful. And also, there sometimes can be an undercurrent with other people thinking, right, like when people are as happy and as grateful and as able to embrace the what is as I present to the world, that life must be easy, right? Her life must be easier than mine. And so I would just like to share that the most recent developments in my life are that my baby sister, who my parents adopted when I was a junior in high school, so there's a big age gap. She's only 24. She does not live in the state. She lives in New Jersey. She came to stay with my mom because she was having an outpatient procedure, like really simple outpatient procedure. And when they went to put her under for this procedure and begin the procedure, so before they even really started doing anything, her heart stopped. So they did CPR. They brought her back. She's now in the ICU. And that could be a spiral, right? That could be a spiral into, OMG, how does this happen? Like, life is out to get us. Who has surgery on Friday the 13th? It's bad luck. It's bad timing. Everything is awful. Nothing is safe, right? And I've been that person who has viewed the world that way. Like, you go into victimization, right? And that is one option, right? And it may be someone's default option. And now I am grateful to be at a place in my life where I'm hearing this information, and it helps that I have a medical background where I'm like, okay, her heart stopped. She's 24. Thank God, right? Thank God, if her heart was going to stop, it was on an operating table and not in New Jersey and not at my mom's house, or not during the night when she was sleeping, where nobody would have known for hours until it was too late, right? So if her heart was going to stop, and if she has a condition that made her heart stop, thank God it happened in an operating room, right? And that now she is being evaluated and they're researching this. And also having the medical awareness that somebody who is 24 and who does not have a lot of a length in her neck, that has like a pretty thick neck and is really overweight, that like she's high risk of sleep apnea, and I don't think she's ever been tested. And so that is something that can make your heart electricity really irritable, because when you have sleep apnea and you're lying flat and your airway collapses while you're sleeping, your body will release stress hormones to startle you awake, right? Because your body doesn't want to be hypoxic. And that can happen up to a lot of times in a minute. And so you are getting all of these bursts of things like adrenaline, right? You can imagine the effect that has on your heart, right? In terms of the electrical activity in your heart. And so when I worked in surgery, we used to test all of our patients who met specific criteria for sleep apnea, and then we would make sure that they were being treated for like a solid 6 weeks before putting them under anesthesia, because they have this risk. And actually, my last supervisor, when I was still working in the hospital, who was a mentor of mine from the time I was in school, who I adore, who's an amazing human, and a PA, one of the early PAs, like a PA pioneer, he had undiagnosed sleep apnea, and his heart stopped. And it just so happened that he was in the company of his daughter, who was also a PA, who was able to do CPR and bring him back, where he did not have any deficits from it, and he got worked up, and they found he had sleep apnea, and they put him on appropriate treatment, and now he's happily retired. And so, right, like, we could look at it as the catastrophic event and look at that as the entire lens. And that would be very negative mind oriented. We can look at it in terms of, oh, how lucky is she that she was in that space? And like, sure, her heart stopped, but everything is going to be fine now, right? And that would be total positive mind. Or we could just get to the what is, right? And the what is my 24-year-old sister went in for a procedure and her heart stopped, and we don't know why her heart stopped. It is fortunate that she was in a space where she was with professionals who could do something about it. And, right, that is still heavy, and there's a lot of unknown, and that is a lot for everyone to process, right? It doesn't need to be either or, it can be both and, right? Life is hard, and it is messy, and it is also beautiful and miraculous, right? And can you see both in that event, right? Can you see how, like, gosh, that's really hard and it's scary, and also like how miraculous that she was exactly where she needed to be when that happened. And that doesn't feel like an accident. And if you are wondering, right, like how I could be in this place and sort of smile while I talk about it, well, here's the thing. Within the past, not even 5 years, like maybe 3 years, I have spent more time in hospitals. My children have been exposed to more hospitals than tiny beings ever should be, right? So my little guy, from the time he was, I don't know, like maybe 18 months, developed a reactive airway, and every time he would get an upper respiratory infection, we would be in the ER because he was hypoxic. And that was with a neb machine. That was, right, like with a mom who has a pulse ox, who knows what to do in these situations, right? He's been admitted for dehydration. He's been in the ER for nursemaid's elbow, to the point where I now know how to reduce it, because that was happening regularly. My daughter has been admitted with dehydration. My father, who has all kinds of trauma-related psychiatric illness, and now, right, with layered dementia on top of that, so he just really struggles to be in this reality. I took him to the hospital with pneumonia, and he never came home because of his psychiatric stuff, right? Like, he is in an inpatient setting, and, right, and cannot come back home to the civilian world, right? Because that just won't ever be safe for him. And that is the what is of that situation. And does that suck? Yeah, that sucks. And also, do I feel a million kajillion times better and safer knowing he's where he can't hurt himself or anybody else? Absolutely. Right? Like, there's a blessing in that too. My father-in-law, right, over a year ago, we went to go on vacation with them for Easter, and he ended up with the flu, with pneumonia, and was hypoxic in the hospital, right? That was our vacation. My husband, a year ago in July, was in the hospital for our anniversary because he had Lyme encephalitis and had meningitis from Lyme, and spent 3 days in the hospital and then like 3 months out of work, like mostly in bed. Right? Like, we are very seasoned at this. And the thing I can tell you is, when you have a kid who is struggling to breathe on a regular basis, right? Like you can fall apart, and that would be reasonable, right? No one would fault you for that. Or you get to the point where you reckon with the fact that none of us is entitled to a healthy kid. I'm not entitled to a healthy kid. I'm not entitled to a healthy husband. Oh, this past summer, my dog tried to die. He was having seizures and he was in the ICU, and it looked like we were going to have to put him down because he couldn't breathe. And right? And I'm not entitled to a healthy dog either, right? I've been really lucky that I never had a dog that needed medication or surgeries or had an emergency. And then we were supposed to fly out on vacation, and the day before, my dog had multiple seizures and couldn't breathe and was in the ICU. And so my daughter and I did not go on that vacation. My husband and my son still went. Like, this is life, my friends. This is life. It is hard, and it is messy, and it is still beautiful and joyful, if you can just surrender to the what is. Right? Because where we get lost is in our fear and in our judgment and in the stories we tell ourselves about the what is, right? And so somebody said to me yesterday how they're amazed with my ability to hold space and to hold it together when all of this stuff is going on and all this crisis is happening. And like, number one, I was raised in crisis. Like, that is almost a comfort zone for me. I'm very good in a crisis because like that is very familiar. Like, oh, I know how to do this. I was raised in this space, right? Like when you have an unstable parent, every day is a crisis. Every day is unknown. At any moment you could lose that parent. And that awareness is never far away. And that changes your brain chemistry. And so, right, like I could be a mess all of the time, and like I would have a lot of reasons to justify that. And I suppose I was, right? I was a mess and I was a victim for a long time, and then I realized that was really, really exhausting. And I was just attracting more situations to make me the victim, right? I was in an abusive relationship. My first marriage was abusive, and I left after 3 months because that's how long it took for him to assault me. And that was what catapulted me on this whole healing journey, right? Because I was buried, just absolutely buried in so much shame because I had a Catholic upbringing, and you do not divorce. And right, and I lost my relationship with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, over that because she expected me to suck it up, because that is what good Catholic girls do. And I remember having a conversation with her where I was like, Grams, I don't think when God said till death do us part that he thought it was acceptable for your spouse to murder you. Because if I stay in this relationship, like, it will be my life. Right? Like, I know that in my core. And so I am choosing me. And I think that God is okay with that. And she did not agree with me. And that was hard, right? To lose somebody who you were really close to, over choosing yourself over abuse, right? Like expecting to be able to lean on that person and actually, right? Like, what was worse than the trauma of the abuse was the being blamed for it, being shunned for it, and, right, the people who make it your fault. And, right, like, I take responsibility now for the fact that, yes, I attracted that to myself. I was playing out the patterns of my childhood, and that is what we do. We repeat the patterns until we decide to heal, until we decide to do the inner work, whether that's through therapy, whether that's through spiritual healing. But until we do the work, the patterns will repeat, and it doesn't matter who you're in the relationship with, right? Like whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's your work relationships, right? Those patterns will just keep happening until you do the work to change your patterns and what you're attracting and what situations you're putting yourself in, right? Until you learn to set healthy boundaries, until you learn how to really show up for yourself. It'll just be the same stuff, different scenario. So my point in all of this being, connecting to yourself and connecting to your truth and doing everything right? Boundarying, showing up for yourself, doing your inner work. It doesn't smooth things out where there's nothing that's a speed bump, right? People are still going to get sick. You are still going to lose people. Crises are still going to happen. And what is different is being able to stay connected to yourself, being able to stay in the awareness of what is, not getting swept up in it, not being swept in the stories. And, right, that doesn't mean we don't feel. It doesn't mean we don't get sad. It doesn't mean that it's not exhausting. But it can be all of those things and not be the end of the world. It can be all of those things and not be that the universe is against you, right? Like, you could go through really hard things and feel and trust deeply that you have God or source or the force who's still with you. And to have that experience of feeling really held and really loved going through these things, of feeling like you can reach out and get the support you need. And so, yeah, like, I hope that the next time life gets sticky, that you can have an awareness that that's not happening to you. It's just happening, right? Like, it's not personal. It's life. And that bad things can happen and you can still be love and light and connected to love and light. And it's okay to feel the feelings, and it's okay to process those feelings. And, right, the going through the hard doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Right? It's not bad things are happening to you because you were bad. It's bad things happen because they're part of life. And it's not even that they're bad things, they're hard things, right? I don't know if my sister's heart stopping was good or bad. It's just what happened. And, right, that could be really good for her. It could be that they find a problem and it's something that's fixable, and then we don't have to worry about it happening again. Or it could be the start of really poor prognosis, right? Like, I don't know. It's more likely, based on her age, that it'll be fine, but I don't know that. And honestly, I don't know anything ever. Just don't. We sometimes cling to this illusion of control, but we actually don't have control over anything except our breathing. And when we control our breathing, we can regulate our nervous system, and that is something that can help us stay in the awareness and just, witness the what is and show up for ourselves and our people. So I hope today that you know that you are deeply loved, that you have people, that if your unconditionally loving people have not showed up yet, that doesn't mean that you won't get them. I'm sure they're on their way to you. And yeah, I hope that you can trust that wherever you're at is okay, that whatever your heart is will pass, and yeah, that you are worth the effort of showing up for yourself, and you are worth all of the love this world has to offer. You are worth joy. You are worthy of joy. Joy is your birthright. And it's okay to access joy even when you're in the throngs of grief. right? Because joy is often a lifeline. So I love you. I will talk to you all soon.